There are three key elements as to why there's a need for us to develop a smart, sustainable city, a smart, sustainable world. One is to provide better governance for our citizens. By better governance, we mean more effective, more cost-effective ways of handling our environmental issues, more cost-effective ways of reducing the cost of government to the public. The other element that is required is to promote economic development. Find ways that we can utilize being a smart city to grow our economic potential through the creation of jobs. The third element is to provide a higher quality of life. And by that, to make sure that the air we breathe does not have any hidden dangers, that the soil that we walk upon and live upon does not have hidden dangers, to make sure that the quality of life is conducive to a healthy life. Now, how do we do that? How do we get there? Well, if you think about the history of Birmingham in this region, this city was founded in a valley called Jones Valley. And as I mentioned before, the reason why it was founded was because of the fact that, well, why it grew and took off was that all of the elements to make steel were found right here in this community. And growing up, as I did in this community, and a number of others who grew up here in Birmingham, when we saw the red skies in the western section of our city, and you walked outside and looked at the little fine dust particles on top of your automobile or on your porch and things like that, that meant prosperity. That men and women were working, salaries were being earned, and jobs were thriving. Little did we know the hidden dangers of being in this valley, and the valley trapping all the air particulates in it and breathing in and out the dust particles, that it was affecting our health. Little did we know that the metals and chemicals that went into the production of creosote that acted as a preservative for many of the wood products that were used for the railroad ties and our telegraph poles. I still call them telegraph poles. Little did we know that those chemicals would be absorbed in our soil and potentially in our water, and the hazards that they would cause. But we looked at it as part of our economic growth and vitality when we saw that red sky, when we saw those dust particles, when we had that smell of tar and creosote in the air. Over time, as we began to develop scientific knowledge and understanding of those carcinogens that's in our community and in our society, we found out that it was not as healthy as we thought to be economically prosperous, and on the other side of the coin, spending more and more money on our health requirements. And also, it was during the time in the early 40s and 50s in Birmingham that we had a great mass transportation system. It was trolley-based. We had railroad lines going up and down the street. People rode the trolleys, and it was just a perfect mass transportation system in this community. Over time, those trolleys were phased out, and we went to a rubberized system with buses on our streets. And many people would drive those buses back and forth. But gradually, the automobile became more and more and more affordable and popular in our community. And as people began to shy away from riding the buses and more people got into their automobiles, those automobiles and using the carbon-based gasoline began to also contribute to the pollution of our air. To the extent that for many years we have been under the EPA mandate that we have to find ways of reducing the particulate matter in our air because of the problems that it causes with our health. We did not have a total understanding of how we could do that based on technology in the 60s and 70s and 80s. But since the 90s, there's been an explosion of technological developments that will help us overcome many of the ills in our environment that we have had to deal with in the past. But it always had a dollar cost associated with it. And in a time when people were looking at, well, why do we want to spend money on something that really I don't see a benefit, and it costs too much for us to do it at this point in time? Well, the think that's Randy, raise your hand. Over here. Randy said, well, you know, I'm a tree hugger. You know, and that's what we call people who were talking about the environment and trying to save the environment and do those things that the majority of people say, well, is it necessary? You know, I pay enough money in taxes now. Why do we want to waste money on that? It's not going to produce any revenue. It's not going to create jobs. Well, because the technology has changed, now there is an economic benefit to going green, to create a sustainable model and implementing those models in our community. I just got back from China in early December. And over there, you know, we hear a lot here in Jefferson County about our sewer system, the problems and issues that surround that particular venture. Well, over in China, they have developed a way to take raw sewage and to create about 7 or 8 different products, including biodiesel, biogas, a number of chemical products that are used in cosmetics, and a number of different things. Guess where the technology came from for them to develop that? Right here in the United States of America. See, this is a worldwide issue. Other cities, other countries recognize that we have to change the way that we've been doing business in the past as it relates to our environment. But the technological knowledge is coming from right here in the United States. What we have to do is find ways to utilize that technology that we're developing here and sending out to the rest of the world. We've got to figure out a way to use it right here for our own needs and for our own opportunities to make our cities more sustainable. As mayor, one of the greatest challenges that I've had during my administration was the tornadoes that took place on April 27th of this past year. Thanks to the support of the Birmingham City Council, we didn't follow the path of other cities that took the storm debris and put it in a pit, set it on fire, and burned it. What we did, we took the green material that was collected from the tornadoes and we ground that up. And we're using that for landscaping materials and to beautify the city. It could have just as easily gone into our landfill, which then would cost us another $5 million to build a new cell. But we didn't do that. We ground that green material up and we're using that as part of our horticultural efforts to improve the visual appeal of the city. The construction material that we collected, rather than taking that material and also putting it into our landfill, we have a recycling program where the bricks, the wood, the metal, all of the material that came from the houses that were destroyed are now being recycled to be reused in rebuilding our neighborhoods and our communities. For that, we've received national recognition. Now, there were some people say, well, why are you wasting time and money? Just go ahead and hire the Corps of Engineers, and they'll come in and they'll burn the material up and take the ash and dump it in your landfill, and you're through with it. Nice and simple. But it takes a special effort to initiate programs like the one that I just described, that we recycle the green material, recycle the construction material. But if you make a commitment to do that, the benefits, once you make the initial investment, far outweigh the concerns that people initially had about the reservations of taking on a new challenge. We've got to do that across the board in our sustainability efforts for the city, for the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and the private sector. We're looking at ways of using LED technology to reduce the cost of electricity in our buildings and trying to implement a program that we can change out the lighting systems in our streets and in our buildings. We're looking at ways that we can convert more of our trucks to use compressed natural gas or biodiesel fuel that we can generate from our own landfill. And because of all of these new technologies, the council had the forethought prior to my getting there to create what I said before was a Sustainable City Commission that's looking at ways to tap into the federal funds and federal initiatives that has been established by the current administration to find ways to lead cities and communities towards more sustainable environments that we can be more productive in the future. Now, what's the payoff for all of that? As I told you before, we looked at jobs that were created in the past that we later found out created health problems. Well, now, if we go green, if we create a more sustainable environment, if we create more bike lanes so people can get out and rather than drive in a car, ride their bicycles, they become healthier. We reduce the number of carbon emissions into our air. They breathe healthier. The the soil and the air and other things that may cause problems in the past will now be friendly to our body. We need to get back to a more basic way of growing our foods rather than shipping foods from all parts of the world. We need to start growing our vegetables here locally and eating them locally for many different reasons. One, you don't use as much fuel to transport those items to us. And each community can become self-sustainable if we just take those basic principles, implement those principles, and then try to capitalize on the benefits that come out of those. I mentioned earlier that one of the most important factors in our community is getting back to a sense of developing advanced transportation systems that everyone can use. The more cars we can get off the streets and the highways, the more energy we save, the cleaner our air will be, and it's just a more effective way of moving people. But there's an investment that we have to make. And you know, everybody wants somebody to come in and save them. But we've got to figure out a way to save ourselves. It's going to cost money. And everybody has to be on board, from our state legislature to our private sector to our local governments. Everyone has to be about the business of creating a public transportation system that's not looked upon as a system for the poor or people who can't afford automobiles, but for all people who want to use effective modes of transportation to connect jobs with people and people with jobs. Griffin, where are you? Griffin, stand up. Griffin is my green energy czar. He doesn't look like a green giant on the canned foods, but he has been tasked with the responsibility of making sure that the city is doing all that it can to become a more sustainable city, looking at programs that we can implement through the Sustainable City Commission and a number of other things. We've been back and forth to Washington, D.C. to try to get a better understanding of some of the new initiatives that are coming out of Washington, coming out of the private sector, so that we can implement those new programs right here in Birmingham, Alabama, and throughout the state of Alabama, in conjunction with the University of Alabama here in Birmingham. So I want to thank everyone who's been a part of making this symposium happen. I want you to know that as mayor, I'm committed to doing my part along with the city council to make Birmingham a sustainable city community, a community that you all can be proud of. And one other thing before I close out, I think I saw Bruce Harrington. Bruce, where are you? Where? Stand up, Bruce. Oh, there he is. Okay. Bruce Harrington is a local architect. He's also a member of the American Institute of Architecture. And he was one of the first individuals that we reached out to help develop the city's LEED program. You all are familiar with LEED. It's the program that recognizes efficient, sustainable construction so that people can get an award for building sustainable buildings in architecture. Bruce has helped the city of Birmingham establish its own LEED program, whereby we will have incentives for contractors and architects and developers to build more green buildings in our community. There'll be an economic benefit, there'll be an awards benefit for them, and then there'll be a source of pride knowing that they are leading the way here in the Birmingham community in designing and building energy efficient, high quality buildings right here in our community. So please give Bruce a big round of applause. I thank each and every one of you. Stephen Fancher, he's working with our Sustainable City Commission. I know we have at least one member of our Sustainable City Commission. Do we have other members? Would you all please stand up? Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's go forward and make this entire area more sustainable than it was in the past. And together we can breathe healthier, we can walk healthier, we can live healthier with a great sustainable program. Thank you.